most of my time.
Thank you. I now yield 5 minutes to Mr. Huizenga from Michigan. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. And my colleague from Missouri just actually started going down a road that I wanted to explore a little bit. And Dr. Vetter, from the historical perspective, I think it would be helpful to have a very brief explanation about the dual mandate. How long has it been in place? Why was it really implemented? And then moving on to all three of you, is the dual mandate a proper mandate? I think Dr. Bivens was starting to talk a little bit about that, but I'd like to hear the remainder of the panel's views on that.
The dual mandate, when I think of the history of this, I think first of the Employment Act of 1946, where the government committed itself to a policy of encouraging full employment. And even in that bill, the price stability was mentioned, and it was part of the so-called mandate. Again, it was more a statement of intent rather than a prescriptive statement. The Humphrey-Hawkins bill, which I think was, 1977 or something like that, was a more explicit widening of that mandate and made much more explicit. And all of this proceeds sort of, there was almost implicit in some of this, a lot of this relates to what we might call the Phillips curve idea, that if you have price stability, can you have price stability and full employment? That's the empirical issue. We can have that discussion. I do not think that the manipulation of prices in the long run impacts on employment, period. I think it does in the short run. I've written a book which indicates it does. There is a Phillips curve in the short run sometimes, but in the higher inflation, lower unemployment. But in the long run, I don't see that relationship exists.
Well, in terms of the price stability, we have price indexes that go back all the way back to 1790, or even a few years before that. And the price level in 1913, when the Fed was created, it was roughly the same as it was in 1790, with some ups and downs. But ever since the Fed was created, the price level is 22 times higher now. So when I hear the idea that the Fed has a mandate to stabilize prices, it's almost farcical. And I don't think overall it has done a very good job in stabilizing employment either. And so, you can mandate that that's the Fed's job, but I think historically it hasn't done a very good job in either one.
Yeah, I mean, in regards to that, I'll say I would much rather have the average economic growth and the frequency of duration of recessions we've had post-1914 than in the 150 years prior. I mean, basically, some moderate rate of inflation is the price you pay for having economic growth and fighting recessions in a serious way. Again, to the degree that there's been a problem with the dual mandate over the past 25, 30 years, it's been that one half of it, the full employment commitment, has really been the sort of neglected part.
So if I'm hearing you, Dr. Bivens, you want to see the dual mandate remain, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I guess the other two panelists, do you believe it's appropriate to remain, that language to remain in there and as goals and objectives? Yes, yep, Dr. Vetter and Dr. Lorenzo.
I think we ought to repeal the Humphrey-Hawkins Act, period. Just do away with it.
I would agree with that. Well, we've mentioned Christina Romer several times. One of her academic articles actually revises some data and shows that the business cycle was actually not more unstable in the pre-Fed era in the 19th century than it is than was after the pre-Fed era. So you can't even make the case anymore, according to Christina Romer's research, that the Fed has done anything to stabilize the business cycle compared to the bad system we had then, the admittedly bad, flawed system we had before the Fed came into being.
Dr. Bivens, do you care to address Humphrey-Hawkins at all or any of the other points?
First, it was my understanding that Humphrey-Hawkins was actually no longer in effect. Am I wrong on that? Did it lapse in 2005 or 6?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Wasn't
yes.
here.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So I'm not, I think the dual mandate should absolutely be part of what the Fed is tasked to do.
Okay.
So,
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back my time.